Coming up on Esoteric Atlanta.
So, unknown question, go to Denver Airport. When is all of this going to happen? Scandal, scandal, Denver Airport. This is what I found so freaking fascinating, you guys, too. And was like, oh God, not only do we have to read this because it was the first one, but we also need to talk about the Denver Airport. All right. Scandal. I don't understand. New Denver Airport.
And before we get into the episode today, guys, I just wanted to give a great big thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here on Esoteric Atlanta. Without our patrons and our producers, this show would absolutely not be possible. If you would like to help support the work we do on Esoteric Atlanta, there is a link to our Patreon account in the description box below. Laura Knight's Cassiopeian experiments, often associated with the Cassiopeia material, involves the exploration of consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality. Through various methodologies, including channeling and psychic experiments, Knight and her collaborators sought to communicate with higher intelligences, particularly a group of entities referred to as the Cassiopeians. The primary aim was to gain insight into the metaphysical questions, the nature of existence, and human development. The experiments included multi-session discussions that covered topics like multidimensional realities, free will, and the influence of higher dimensional beings on humanity. Knight recorded these sessions, which often contained profound philosophical and esoteric insights, and these records became part of a larger body of work that aimed to explore consciousness beyond conventional scientific understanding. The overall tone of the experiments reflect a blend of skepticism and deep inquiry into the nature of consciousness and our place in the universe. Laura Knight began her communication with the Cassiopeians in 1994. She is still in communication with the Cassiopeians to this day. If you would like a better understanding of the Cassiopeians and their impact on humanity, I would highly suggest checking out the Wave series by Laura Knight, the Cassiopeian Forum, which a link will be provided in the description box below, or purchasing the book that I personally am reading from that contains all of the transcripts and conversations between Laura and the Cassiopeians. The Cassiopeians base the soul's evolution and consciousness on the spiritual template known as the Law of One. The Law of One is also known as the raw material. It is a series of philosophical texts that emerged from a series of channeling sessions conducted by Carla Rucker, Don Elkins, and Jim McCarthy in the early 1980s. The sessions involved channeling a consciousness known as Ra, who claimed to be a collective of extraterrestrial beings from the sixth density. The key concepts in the Law of One are unity and oneness. The central tenet of the Law of One is that all beings are fundamentally interconnected and are expressions of the same universal consciousness. The phrase, "we are all one," encapsulates this idea, emphasizing that unity is the essence of existence. It also covers the densities of existence. The material describes the cosmos as composed of multiple densities or levels of existence. Each density represents a stage of spiritual evolution, with humans currently experiencing a third density, which is characterized by lessons in love, understanding, and most importantly, making choices. We also seek to understand in the Law of One soul evolution. According to Ra, souls undergo a process of evolution through these densities, learning and growing through various incarnations. The choice between these paths influences one's spiritual evolution and the experiences one encounters in life. There's also discussions of the role of free will. Free will is considered sacred, and individuals are encouraged to explore and make choices regarding their spiritual development without interference from higher beings. If you would like more information on the Law of One, please make sure to check out the material for yourself. A link to all resources will be posted down in the description box below. But for now, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. True story here. I've had to stop and start filming this multiple times because my nose has been itching so bad. It's been itching on multiple episodes. I had to even take my nose ring out. But you know what they say? You know what they say? When your nose itches, it means the truth is being told. And it just so happens that we've been going through, when my nose has been itching so bad, we've been going through a lot of these old Cassiopeian transcripts. So excuse me if you see my nose red or if I have to stop and itch it for a moment. I know it's gross. It's just been happening. It's been happening lately. So anyway, I just created a 3 to 4 minute video clip that played at the beginning of this episode. It's going to play at the beginning of every single episode we do regarding the Cassiopeians and the Law of One. And that is simply because I feel like at this moment, this work is so unbelievably important. I mean, it's been important for always, but right now we're at the crux of why the Cassiopeians have been communicating with us for 31 years. And so I really feel like I love that you guys are loving this series, and I cannot wait to go forward. And as always, on the side of light, the polarity of light, we share everything. We share our knowledge. And so that's what I'm doing with you guys. We're going to have an open forum, an open discussion about these old transcripts. The Cassiopeians always encourage people to network with each other. Sometimes the answers they give are vague because they want us to communicate with each other and figure this out together. And so that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing on my YouTube channel. Back in 1994, we didn't even know that YouTube was going to ever possibly be a thing. And so with that being said, that beginning episode or the beginning 3-minute, 4-minute clip, that is going to play in every single video for any person who just happens to stumble upon this video, so that you have the resources and the courtesy of understanding where all of this is coming from. As many of you guys know, if you've been with me for a while, I love to research. I love to discuss these topics with you. And as always, I encourage you to do your own research. And so in the description box below, I'm going to have a link to Laura Knight's first book, the Wave series, the first book, because you got to start with the beginning, right? And of course, the first book to the Law of One. There's also going to be a link to the Cassiopeian Forum. Now, the Cassiopeian Forum, the Cassiopeian Experiment Forum, is free. It's up on the internet. All of the transcripts the past 31 years are up there. You can search for different dates, put different keywords in. However, we do at my house, we do have the first published books, Volume 1, 2, and 3, 1994 through 1997, I believe. And so that's what I'm going to be referencing, because there are some background notes. As Laura went back and published these transcripts, she left some commentary, which I find to be super fascinating. And the commentary is not on the forum. Just the transcripts are on the forum. But nonetheless, the forum is free. So the forum is free. All the transcripts are free. So if you can't afford to buy the books or get the Wave series, I would suggest going to the forum, because you can actually see the conversations with the Cassiopeians. Now, oddly enough, you know, I've said this in multiple of these videos, I can't go through all 31 years of these downloads, but I have been scanning through the 1994 year. And I guess I passed over the first transcript in this book from July 16th of 1994. And I went back yesterday and I was like, how did I miss this? And I don't know. I'm assuming this is the first ever time that they meet the Cassiopeians. I don't see any other readings in here before July 4th of 1996. It's just articles in here about quantum physics and how this all works, which is available in this book, The Cassiopeian Experiment, Volume 1. Again, link in the description box below. And I'm assuming that July 16th was the first time they ever talked to the Cassiopeian. So I thought this was super fascinating for many, many reasons. But Laura has a note here, a background to this reading that I am going to read to you guys, because this is wild to me. So July 16th, 1994, then we're going to look at the forum. Laura writes, background. We had been sitting weekly for a bit over 2 years at this point, and most of what had come through was a stream of alleged discarnates, ghost, dead guys, and space brothers. One of the discarnates claimed to be an old friend of mine, science fiction writer Keith Laumar, I hope I'm saying his last name right, who passed the previous year on January 23rd of 1993. A few weeks prior to this session presented here, we had asked a few general test questions about aliens and UFOs, and the word Ra, R-A, had been spelled out several times. So for those who are not aware, when they speak to the Cassiopeians, they speak to them through a board and they write out things for them. And so she's saying, as for 2 years, they had been sitting working on this, and they had talked to a bunch of like ghosts, they call them discarnates. So, earthbound spirits who had once been in a body. Again, we call them ghost, or like space brothers. So like just alien life, and they get into this. This is another thing that's super important to understand. When you are channeling, when you are doing this work, you need to be training for this. Like, you can't, if anybody just gets down and starts swinging a pendulum, I don't trust that at all. Like, you need training in this, because there is so many things that can go wrong. And Laura and her group had trained and trained and trained for years to be able to do this, to be able to communicate with the Cassiopeians. It is super, super, super important, okay? It's not a free-for-all. It's not a free-for-all. And everybody, I believe, has the gift to do this, but you need to be trained. You need to spend years humbly training with people who know the boundaries, who know the blind spots, who know what to look out for. Because a lot of times what appears to be a good entity is actually a bad entity disguised as a good entity to derail people, right? My friend Cindy also trained for years. She's been on the channel with me. I teach at her Shala here in Atlanta. She trained for years and years and years and years and years and years to do what she does. And she talks about that too, that there's a lot of mischievous behavior with the spirit world. And just because a spirit tells you things you want to hear or pretends to be of the light doesn't mean that they are. In fact, most of the time, you're gonna get spirits that are malicious. The light will only intervene, the good spirits will only intervene when absolutely necessary and you've asked for them to. They don't just pop in and start talking because they respect your free will. So I wanted to point that out. So she's saying that they had been training for a while, and then for 2 years, they sat just trying to make contact. And they were going through these loops of picking up spirits from disembodied people who had passed, to like space brothers, like random alien, like nothing groundbreaking. So she's saying one of the spirits was allegedly her friend. And I like that she says allegedly or claimed to be, because a lot of times spirits will claim to be your grandmama or something like that, and they're not. They're not. So I like that she has a lot of discernment with that. So anyway, she says that they're on this board, and the name Ra keeps being spelled out, R-A. Except for the well-known Egyptian god, the only other references I had were from Edgar Cayce's channeling. However, this is where it gets really fascinating and very serendipitous. However, just a few days after this, I came across an ad in a magazine for a book titled The Raw Material that was supposed to have been channeled from an ancient astronaut. Now, again, for the young ones in the audience, in 1994, we did not have the internet. We did not have Netflix. TV shows came on at times. We had landlines. So you would see ads for books in certain magazines, or you would go to the bookstore. And so after she had been working on this board for a while, had done all this training to try to communicate with a higher entity, she all of a sudden was in communication, and the name Ra, R-A, was being spelled out. She was super confused because the only Ra she knew was the Egyptian god, obviously, and stuff from Edgar Cayce's channeling. And then, like a few days later, she sees an ad in a magazine for the Raw Material, otherwise known, my friends, as the Law of One. Okay, intrigued? I ordered the book and read it. I immediately knew that this was important material, and even though we were becoming weary of our long vigil at the board, when I read about the many years this experimental channeling group put into a similar project, I took, and instead of giving up as I was tempted to, we persisted. Because that's the thing about the Law of One too. Carla Rutledge, all Don Elkins, all those guys, James McCarthy, what's that the other guy's name? Anyway, they put in years and years and years of work, again, to be able to channel this, to get this information from another source. So I'm telling you guys, you cannot just start swinging your pendulums and think that you're getting the correct answers. It does not work that way. It takes time. It takes time. And I think back in 1994, we knew this. But I think what's happened in our society is that there's such a rampant outbreak. There's an infestation of like narcissism and entitlement that people are not willing. They get offended when you tell them they have to put the work in. Back a long time ago, we knew this. But now we just are so entitled to think that we're special, and we're more special than other people, that we think we can just start pulling tarot cards or swinging our pendulum without having any type of hard training to be able to have discernment to get the correct answer. So I wanted to say that. Now, back to this story. So Laura, when she started working with the Cassiopeians and discovered them, she knew nothing about the Law of One. So basically what was happening is the universe was like, you're going to have to understand the raw material, the Law of One, before we speak to you, because nothing that we say is going to make sense until you understand the template of spirituality. And that's why I love the Law of One. We're in a third density world. We have the point of third density is making choices. We can either go positive or negative. Sometimes what appears to be positive isn't. It's actually negative. For example, we spoke about this with Paula, I believe. You know, when we send healing to people who haven't asked for our healing, that's not of the light. That's of the darkness. Because you're trying to override that person's free will. You can't send healing to somebody unless they've actually asked for it. Because otherwise you're trying to override their free will, and that's of the darkness, right? And so it's really important to study the Law of One, to understand all these intricate like loopholes. Yeah? So with that being said, let's get into this July 16th, 1994. Now, again, this is not the first time they'd ever been to the board, but it might be, from what I understand with what this is saying, is that this is the first time she met the Cassiopeians. I'm going to keep my book here. Again, if there's any other interesting footnotes that she's written. So on the board, we have Frank, Scarlett, and Laura. Now, I have Scarlett in my book. She has Candy here, and she has a footnote here. Makes sense, you guys. She changes names a lot, and she wrote that here, that the Candy and Scarlett are interchangeable fake names. Both of them, I think, are fake names for one of the people that was doing this, and understandable, right? Like when you're doing work like this, it's dangerous, and especially since Laura started to put this out publicly, I respect Laura for asking their permission. And so obviously we have in parentheses here that these are not these people's real name. And so obviously they wanted their real names to be left anonymous. Obviously she is Laura, she's Laura Knight. So I just wanted to make that clear, that when you see some of these names, not their real name. So, all right, let's get into it. So question, hello, answer, hello. Do you have any messages for us? Keep doing what comes naturally. In what respect? Study. Now we know the Cassiopeians have said multiple times, what is the biggest protector of all of this for all of us? And that's gaining knowledge. And with this, before we go on to, like, I know I have been told multiple times it's in the Cassiopeian forums, I've been told by other people offline that me putting this stuff up on my channel is dangerous. I'm going to make that very clear. I know that. I know that I'm opening myself up for more attacks. Anybody who really gets to the heart of this stuff does experience a lot of what they call negative greetings, because this stuff, the darkness does not want this stuff out. However, I sat down with my boyfriend and we talked about it, and I just kind of started to laugh. I was like, listen, I have been on YouTube for 5 years now. I have had a coven after me. I've had my birth chart stolen. I've had my money stolen. I've been through hell and back on YouTube. It's going to take a lot to really stop me from doing something. I have nothing to lose at this point. What's the Janis Joplin song, Bobby McGee? Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And I talked to my boyfriend about it because I know that my actions affect him as well, obviously, because we live together and, he's the most important person in my life, obviously. And he supports this with me. He understands, I understand that this is dicey to put this stuff out there, but I feel like that's kind of my karma. I don't have any children. It's just my boyfriend and me. So I feel like I need to do this. I need to put this out so that other people can get this information for themselves and start the study for themselves. And what's even more fascinating, my friends, and a lot of you guys know this. So my boyfriend has been studying the Law of One for over 20 years. And that's how he found the Cassiopeians. And he has loved Laura Knight for a very long time. He's bought me, this is one of Laura Knight's books, a bunch of her other books. She's an incredible researcher. And so, but it wasn't until maybe about a year ago, my boyfriend's family, his mom's family, his I believe it's his 2 times great grandfather, was a man named Jesse Knight. And Jesse Knight, during the American Civil War, he was a farmer, I think a dairy farmer, in South Georgia. And he drove, during the American Civil War, he drove 300 heads of cattle down into Florida to get away from the war. Now, at that point, Florida was not a part of the United States. And there was a lot of still, from what they tell us, there was a lot of untamed land. And so Jesse Knight established basically on the west coast of Florida, you have Tampa, you have Clearwater, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, these cities. They're all different cities, but they're all kind of there together. And then below that is Venice, Nokomis. Jesse Knight settled all of those towns, those famous, a lot of people know these towns, Tampa, Sarasota. There's a lot of monuments to Jesse Knight. There's a lot of buildings named after him and parks named after him. And my boyfriend's parents still live outside of Sarasota. Actually, they live very close to the graveyard where Jesse is buried, and none of them knew him, obviously, because he lived in the 1800s. And my boyfriend's father still does the lawn, mows the lawn at the graveyard, and chit chats to Jesse sometimes. But so big family. He comes from a big, very Floridian family on his mom's side. His mom's side. And he's double because the Currys, his grandmother was a Knight and a Curry, because the Currys also came up from the Bahamas and helped the Knights settle. So he's got double whammy. Well, all these years he's been studying Laura Knight and he's been reading her work. Well, about a year ago, as I was saying, Jesse Knight, my boyfriend's great-great-grandfather, had also established the Methodist Church in Nokomis. And this is the church that my boyfriend's family's been going to for generations. That's where he was baptized. He stopped going to church at 12. But they got this new, in Nokomis, they got this new preacher, I guess they call them preachers in the Methodist Church, that came in a few years ago and really tried to turn this church into one of those mega churches. In my opinion, this preacher was a totally malignant narcissist, wanted to be a rock star, And in doing so, he gutted the original church, the historic original church, and he threw out a bunch of stuff. Well, my boyfriend's father went and collected a bunch of the old pews and some of the old stuff from the church because of how nice they are, the wood, they're very old, and he saved some of them. So we were down there about a year ago, and he asked my boyfriend if he wanted any of the pews or anything like that. My boyfriend was like, you know what? Yeah, I can take a pew and put it in our yoga shala. It sits in our yoga shala to this day. And so my boyfriend, we lugged that pew back from Florida. He gets it into the yoga shala and he goes over there one day and he's like, I'm going to clean the pew and get it all set up in our business. And so he comes back and he's like white as it goes. He's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I never knew this. So while he was cleaning this pew, this church pew that had been built by his great-great-grandfather, Jesse Knight, he was listening on a podcast to Laura Knight being interviewed. And she doesn't do many interviews. And Laura Knight was talking about how her family, the Knights, settled Florida. And all of a sudden it hit my boyfriend while he was cleaning this pew that they are both descendants of Jesse Knight. So he contacts his mom. Turns out his mom had been in communication with Laura for quite some time. They're like second cousins. And they had been sharing family information they knew each other. His mom did not know that Laura has this woo-woo like Cassiopeia site. She doesn't follow this stuff, but she knew Laura as a family member. So my boyfriend was like blown away, and he got in contact with Laura. He was like, I cannot believe I never put two and two together that your maiden name is Knight. And I'm also, his last name isn't Knight because it comes through his mom's line. I won't say his last name, but he's a Knight through his mom's line too. And with that being said, that's why it's wild that, my boyfriend studied this stuff for so long, not even knowing that he was very closely related genetically to the woman who put this out. I think that she would be his second cousin once removed because she's like his parents' age. So her kids and my boyfriend would be like third cousins. And so as going back to what I was talking about, there's a reason why I told you guys this story when I was talking to my boyfriend about the dangers of putting this stuff out. And I said, I think this is karmic that we do this. I said, you're related to Laura. You guys are family. You've been in contact with her now privately. And I just happen to have this platform. And I'm used to it. I'm used to getting attacked. I don't like it. No one does. But I can handle it. I might be sensitive, but I'm not weak. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. I can take a lot. So I said that, I just kind of feel like how serendipitous this all was, this coming about with you and me meeting and dating, and then you find out you're her cousin, you have the same lineage, you've been studying her stuff for a while. I end up having this big YouTube platform. I was like, I feel like the universe kind of set it up this way to get this information out. And for me specifically, I don't want to be the gatekeeper of any information, right? I don't want to be the gatekeeper. Listen, I don't understand the negative side because I have a hard enough time controlling my dog on a leash. I have no interest in trying to control humanity at all. That sends my anxiety through the roof. Like to think about trying to do that. So I wanted to put that out there. So this is why, I'm not trying to gatekeep this. I feel like this is important, but I understand it is dangerous to be talking about this. If you want to help put this information out there, you guys, I know this is going to probably get a little shadow banned. I already know that. We're doing what we can. So if you want to share this with your friends and family, leave comments, put it in a link to these videos in any groups that you're in, whatever, especially to people who think they're awake. That's the most frustrating thing is when you read this stuff and you understand this stuff, you realize that the truther community or the disclosure community is the most asleep community. The normies are more awake than the truthers are. And I think that this is really important for people to see because we want people to wake up and to start to study and to start to understand what's really going on here. So I know that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted to put that out there. So whatever you can do to share and also get the books for yourself. Again, I'm not gatekeeping anything. Everything's out there for you to learn for yourself as well. Okay. My only hope is that I can introduce this material to you so that you can then take that step yourself to go on your own path with this stuff and with the Cassiopeians. So when they say study, that's the whole point of me telling you guys that I know that this is dangerous because that is the one thing the Cassiopeians keep saying is going to protect you. Is knowledge. In fact, there's other readings in this 1994 book we might get to and we might not, where they ask the Cassiopeians a lot about rituals and things to do. And the Cassiopeians are like, that shit don't work. That's just hocus pocus. Like that doesn't work. What works is knowing things. What works is study. Knowledge is power. And that's why they talk a lot about the negative side, because if you understand the rules of the game, if you understand what the negative side, what their intention is and why they're doing what they're doing, you can be smarter about the way you play this game too. Because like it or not, you signed up to be a part of this game. You're a player in this game. And you can't just withdraw because as they say, as the Cassiopeians say, the Law of One say, when you decide to be neutral on something, you're going negative. So study, 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 study. Always studying, always researching. All right, what is your name? I have no idea how to say this. Muke Pure, and they do have a footnote here, which is kind of funny. I'm just gonna basically what she's saying in this footnote is, we know this isn't a dead dude, it's not a ghost because of the name. You know, she's like, this was an unusual name. Up to this point, the names we had been given had all been more or less familiar. Names like Dave or John or Mary were not uncommon with the dead dude type context, so like the ghost, right? Some of them even used archaic but still familiar names. So a completely unfamiliar name with no connection was a first. And you, as you guys have probably seen through a lot of the other Cassiopeian readings we've done, their names are very hard to pronounce. Like, they're not names that are from this realm of existence. Are you an alien from another planet? Alien from your perspective, yes. What is your group called? Corsas? I hope I'm saying that right. Corsas. Where are you from? Cassiopeia. Where is that? Near Orion. I had heard that the Orions are the bad guys. Are the Orion group bad? Some bad. Now, this is important to me because, again, sometimes we have this propensity to think that just because you're born in a particular group, or you're a Lizzie, or you're this, or you're that, then you're bad. Every single being, living being, sentient being, has choice, has free will choice. Like, they go on to tell us that our bodies, even though as third density planet, it's a probability that we're going to be going fourth density positive. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before on this channel, but I have known this. We were put into fourth density negatively, we are put into service to self. Our souls have been put into service to self bodies, just to add a little bit more resistance and friction. So that is why people on this planet get very aggressive about eating meat, when we know that eating meat is service to self. It's the negative polarity, but the body, it craves it because you're in a negatively polar. So trying to find that, it just adds even more resistance. Like, I mean, I've been a vegetarian since I was 14, so whatever. But you know, trying to fight your own nature, it's like you're like in a heavy resistance workout class right now, right? And so, but with that being said, a good portion of people on planet Earth are going to be going fourth density positive, even though we're put into negatively oriented bodies. So it's very complicated. It's very complex. Every individual being has its own free will and its own complexity and nuances. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Do you serve self or others? So this comes from the law of one. Service to others is the 40 positive polarity. Service to self is the 40 negative. Now, they say I serve both. What does this mean? So you only split first, second, third density, it's all together. Then it splits fourth and fifth density, and then it comes back together in sixth density. All right? So they're sixth density. So when they say I serve both, it's because they're back in the one. Are you good or bad? Good. What is your philosophy? One. What are you here for tonight? Now, it's interesting they say prophecy, because they don't say prophecy that much. I've talked about this before. You don't see it that often in the Cassiopeian transcripts. Usually they say the word probability, which I like better, because probability means it's a probability it's going to happen, but there's also a chance it won't. So that is where I think the bad guys, the service to self guys on our planet, the Aluma Shmati, and the Cabal, whatever you want to call them, that they have messed with people. Because they've gotten people to believe in that prophecies are things that are set in stone. And so if you think something is set in stone, you rest in your laurels. You don't make proper choices. You don't get up and do your work. And when that happens, when you get lazy, the bad guys walk right into the front door and scoop. The New World Order comes right in and scoops you up. So, but when you tell somebody probability, oh, shoot, that's good news, that this probability that we're probably going to go positive. But even in saying a probability, there's a possibility, a percentage, a chance that we could lose it all. So it keeps people on their toes. It keeps you working. It keeps you figuring things out, which if you're breathing right now and you're alive, you got work to do. That's the spirituality behind it. If you are alive, you got karma to work through. You got stuff you got to do. So it's interesting they say prophecy here. And it might have been because this is one of the first readings. So Laura is just now getting introduced to this group. Yeah. So what prophecies? Tornadoes, Florida, several. Where else? Also Texas and Alabama. When sun in Libra. So when the sun's in Libra, so that would be end of October. No, excuse me, end of September, beginning of October of 1994, guys. So don't worry about it. This was 1994. What planet are you from? So once again, they repeat questions sometimes to make sure this is still the same entity. Corsico, where is that? 2 DILOR, Dilor. Some confusion about this as the planchette have begun to move rather quickly, and that is not complete. So what was that again? You pay attention. What else is going to happen? Now, this is all what they're predicting. And I'm not going to say some of this stuff because you guys can look at the screen. You guys know why. We want to be very careful with the words, right? So some of this stuff is already starting to happen. Now, again, this is 1994. And what the Cassiopeians have said several times is they don't have dates for anything. It's all coming, but they don't know when, because that depends on a lot of variables, which is mostly us and our choices we make. So unknown question, go to Denver Airport. When is all of this going to happen? Scandal, scandal, Denver Airport. This is what I found so freaking fascinating, you guys, too. And was like, oh, God, not only do we have to read this because it was the first one, but we also need to talk about the Denver Airport. All right. Scandal, I don't understand. New Denver Airport, I don't understand. Pay attention. Okay, we are paying attention. What are you trying to tell us? Denver Airport, big, big, big scandal. What kind of scandal? Government. Specifically what? You will see. Dallas Airport is secret base. Orlando 2, Miami 2. What about Denver Airport and how does it relate to prophecies? Denver reveals the government. Look for it. Pay attention. What else do you have to tell us? Okay, let's stop there. So I went and looked this up. So let me show you guys. I'm just going to pull it up off the internet quickly because, again, 1994, I was 11 years old. Now, I have gone back and forth between whether I wanted to cover the Denver Airport or not. I really haven't because there's so many great researchers out there that have already covered the Denver Airport. And like, how many times can you look at the same stuff, right? But I was like, okay, this is July 16th of 1994. When was the Denver Airport opened? February 28th of 1995. So the Cassiopeians were warning Laura and us, the world, because they're talking to all of us through Laura, that the Denver Airport is going to reveal the truth of all the shenanigans that we are dealing with in 1994, but we're about to it was going to speed up. As you guys know, the quickening started to happen after 2001. You guys know what happened in 2001. And then all of a sudden, here we are in 2025, and the world looks like a totally, completely different place. It's chaotic. It's Mad Max. It's wild. And now in 2025, the Denver Airport makes a whole lot more sense. But back then, they were like, what do you mean the Denver Airport? Now, with that being said, I am going to do a quick slideshow for you guys of pictures of the Denver Airport. So let's pick back up here. Denver reveals the government. Look for it. Pay attention. Question, what else do you have to tell us? Montana, experiment with human reproduction. All people there raise, random gas. How are they going to do this? Compel, don't trust, don't ignore. Too strong urges, sinister plots. What do you mean? I don't understand. Strong urge is directed by sinister plot. Plot by whom? The consortium. Who are the members of the consortium? Aliens, the government, all. All who? Government and others. Who is the others? Unknown. Why can't you tell us who is the others? You know who. So sometimes they won't give direct answers because they want you to do your fucking research, right? And network with people like we're doing now. A few weeks ago, I read from the 1994 where they were talking about social media. That social media, they didn't say social media because there was no term for it back then, but they're saying through media, and Laura didn't quite understand because again, it was 1994 that in 2025, we were going to have these things called YouTube, these things called Zooms, where we can network with people, not just in our general vicinity, but from all over the world. That is what we are doing on YouTube. We are networking with each other. We are sharing information with each other. I film with Australia, with England, with Canada. We're constantly sharing information. You guys are from all over the planet, and we're here looking at this stuff going, oh my God, oh my God. It's been right in front of our faces. And so that's why they sometimes don't tell us names, is because we need to go and figure it out and take our sovereignty back. They nudge us in the direction, and then we do the rest. Bob Lazar referred to the fact that aliens supposedly refer to humans as containers. What does this mean? Todd and I talk about, my boyfriend and I talk about this all the time. Answer, later use. Use by who? How many? 94%. 94% of what? Of all population. What do you mean? All our containers, 94% use. I don't understand. Will be used 94%. Used for what? You mean eaten? Total consumption. What do you mean by consumption? Ingested? Consumed for ingredients. Why? New race. Important. 13 years about to happen. Why are humans consumed? They are used for parts. We don't understand. How can humans be used for parts? Now, this part is super interesting. Missing persons often go there, and especially missing children. Okay, so when they talk about us as containers, they're talking about our bodies. And this gets more clear over time. So our containers, our bodies, contain our souls. And we did a reading, I think it was on Thursday with Paula, that reading. I'll link all the readings down, all the past videos down below, where they talked about how these 4D negative entities, so like these higher, like demons, maybe we'd say, they don't really like to possess people who have souls. Like they don't want to get in our bodies because it's too complicated, because you got a soul and they're fighting you. But then you have 50% of the world that's an organic portal that don't have souls. If you're not familiar with the term organic portal, I'll place a video to that down in the description box as well. And so we know that they try to create different type of bodies for us. So they start to manipulate through these things, the food, the air, to change our DNA, so that they can use that DNA later. They can use, we know that they use organs a lot. I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but they're talking about the missing children. Do we have any protection? Some. How can we protect ourselves and our children? Inform them. Don't hide the truth from children. How does truth protect us? Awareness protects. Ignorance endangers. That's why toxic positivity is bad. You need to look at the dark stuff. Why tell children such horrible things? They need to know. I don't know how knowing this helps. This is awful. Why tell children such things? Must know, ease pain with meditation. Tamara has some child meditations on her website too, you guys. Why are you telling us this? It's awful. We love you. Are we supposed to tell others? Don't reveal to public. You would be abducted. This is 1994. Try abducting us now. Now too many people know, right? What is the purpose of this project, New Life Here? Are the aliens using our emotions and energies? Correct. In bodies too. Each Earth year, 10% more children are taken. Do they suffer? Some. Do they all suffer? Some. What happens to souls? Is this physically only? Physical. Souls get recycled. So the soul goes on. Where do the souls go? Back here, most. Do some go elsewhere and go out of planet human? Who is responsible this? The consortium. So that's another word for the Illuminati. Yeah. Now, 1994, this is not news to us now in 2025. With all those islands, with that list, with that park up in California, I'm not saying the names, with the hunting parties in Germany, we know this is going on in 2025, but in 1994, they didn't know what this meant. They had no idea what they were talking about with this consortium, this group, this establishment group that was trying to manipulate humans. They wanted to create a new type of human. So what are we talking about? Remember the Georgia Guidestones. What was the first law? Keep human population at 500 million. Now, what we also know is these things that came out in like 2021, right after the fancy flu, these things, y'all get this. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is from the Cassiopeians. I'll have to go look because they've been talking to Laura for 31 years. There's a lot of information. These things were supposed to affect people like you and me, people who are awake. So they created these things for us to get this because of the fancy flu, to remove us, so that they would only have people on this planet who are like organic portals, are easily brainwashed, so that they could be enslaved to this group. And it's hysterical because all of us who are awake, we didn't get this. Like, joke's on you, establishment. Like, you really think, like, most of us knew the fancy flu was a hoax anyway? So you really think those of us who knew the fancy flu was a hoax, you really think we were going to go get one of these? So the people that ended up getting these are the ones that they want to keep. So that's what's making this battle interesting. And it's interesting, and it's actually, as the Cassiopeians have said, closer to our present time, the battlefield is now more even between light and dark because it backfired. These things kind of backfired on them because the wrong people got them. All right. So I think it's kind of funny. That is totally sick. I don't want to do this anymore. Sick is subjective. But what you were telling us is so awful. Understand, but does not conform to your perspective. Okay, understand, but all does not conform to your perspective. Okay, so this is an important one because I tell this. I had somebody put a comment like, "I don't agree with this. It's so crazy what the establishment is doing." And I was like, "So you're mad that the Cassiopeians are telling us about what the establishment is doing because you don't agree that what the establishment doing." You believe that what the establishment is doing is not good. Well, honey, so do we on this channel. We think what they're doing is not good too. But what the Cassiopeians are saying and what I've been saying, it doesn't effing matter. It doesn't fucking matter if you think it's bad or not. They do it. And your opinion on their actions is not going to change their actions. Again, I have to be very careful about what I say regarding, we'll say, their religious rituals with children. It doesn't matter. If you think, I think it's terrible too. That's why we're studying this, to know this. But just because the Cassiopeians are telling you about it does not mean the Cassiopeians are bad. They're informing you of what is going on. And you having the opinion that this is not good is not going to change what that group is doing. They don't care for our opinions anyway. They want to enslave us. And that's where I get frustrated with humanity, because are you that self-centered that you think that your opinion is going to, that just because you don't think something is good, it's going to stop somebody else from doing it? Like, are you that self-centered to think that you actually can change somebody else's mind? What stop? We're not going to change their minds. They're on the path that they are purposefully on this path. They want to be on the negative, the service to self path. They're not going to be like, oh, shucks, we should. They know what they're doing is bad. They know it's not good, but they're doing it for a particular religious reason. And us sitting here and saying you shouldn't do that is not going to stop them from doing it. What's going to stop them from doing it is us knowing about it, holding them accountable by law and order, and shutting down these places where these rituals take place. And it has to come from the consent of the overall people. It can't come from some secret military that's just cleaning everything up for you. The people have to know this. The people have to know so thoroughly what's going on in Hollywood, what's going on everywhere, that they cannot hide it anymore. Knowledge is power, and knowledge protects. Okay. Why is this happening to us? Karma. What kind of karma could bring this? Atlantis. So we know we've been down this. We've been on this. This ain't our first rodeo. What's happening right now is mirroring what happened in the fall of Atlantis. But in the fall of Atlantis, we fucked up and it went bad. So now we have to course correct. That's the karma. That's what karma is. All karma is a neutralizer. It's just counterpose, pose, counterpose. It's a neutralizer. It's bringing that sattva, that total auspicious harmony, balance. Sattva, that's the kind of the sense. Like sattva is a guna, but it's kind of Sanskrit, like sattva, that equalness, where everything's in balance. So that's what karma is, and that's why we're here in this predicament and why this is happening. What can protect us? Knowledge. How do we get this knowledge? You're being given it now. This conversation with the Cassiopeians. What knowledge do you mean? You have it. How does the knowledge of what you have told us help us? Gives great defense. What knowledge gives great defense? Just gave it. What specifically? Don't ask. That not important. We don't understand. Knowledge about it gives psychic defense. How do we tell other people, and who should we tell? Inform indirectly only. How? Right. So right now, 1994, she's putting together the books. She's putting together the Wave series, all that kind of stuff. So this is 1994. Now we have media. And again, in another reading later on, they get into what the media, the world of media is going to look like. Okay? And yeah, inform indirectly. Like people ask me, I've got that question a lot. Like, Bryce, how do I convince my parents that Jesus, it wasn't his name and he wasn't crucified from your research? I'm like, well, don't start with that one. Don't start with that big one. Maybe start with, hey, you know, there's a copyright on the Bible. That's interesting. Why would there be a copyright on the Bible if it was the word of God? It's weird, right? Like start with little indirect nuggets so that people can start to do this research for themselves. And therefore, when they are ready to see this information, besides you telling them about the information, they're going to find it for themselves and it's going to make more of an impact. Yeah? So, should we use hypnosis to uncover such memories? It's open. If basically, it's up to you. Have any of us been abducted? Yes. Who, all of us sitting here? Yes. How many times? Frank, 57, Candy, 56, Laura, 12. Why has Laura not been abducted as much? Laura laughs. It's not over. Candy laughs. Candy was abducted last month. Laura, 33 years of age, 4 years ago. Who is abducting us? Others. What is the name of the group? Different names. Are we all abducted by the same group? Mostly. What did they do to us? Gave false memories? Made you an inhibited child, headache, sick at school? Where is my implant? Head. Frank, same. Laura, same. What are implants for? Study devices. To study what? Soul composition. Do any of the rituals provide protection against further abductions? You don't need protection if you have knowledge. How do we get this knowledge? Deep subconscious. When did we get it? Before birth. Is there anything else we can do for protection? Learn, meditate, read. Are we doing what we need to be doing at the present? So far, need awaken, must go now, out of energy, I must go. Okay, you guys, so they get into it. We're going to get into it in a later reading where they talk about the good aliens never abduct. It's always the bad aliens that abduct, always, and it's to study us. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to be doing way more of these. So let me know your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section. Be respectful. If you are, again, I've said this before, if you are a Christian, it's always the Christians that cause the problems. If you are a Christian, I implore you to remember that your job is to be Christ-like. to not bully people, to not abuse people, to not tell people they're wrong because it's your opinion. Remember, these are just opinions. No one's coming to you on your YouTube channel harassing you. So be very, very respectful to everybody that's here on the board. Treat every human being like you would want to be treated. That's even in your Bible. Love one another as God has loved you. Remember that, Christians. God loves everyone. So if you have an opinion of dissent where you don't like this stuff, you can express your opinion, but don't name call anybody. Don't try to curse anybody by telling them they're going to hell, or you will be blocked. And make sure to say that this is your opinion, because it's not a fact. Your opinions are not facts. Feelings are not facts. With that being said, what do you guys think about them telling her about the Denver airport before it was even open? Wow. Cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say. And I cannot wait to get to the next reading with you guys. All right. Again, everything to do your own research into this is all in the description box below. Make sure to support Laura and I, because without her, we would not have this stuff. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Bye, everybody.
Let me show you the sky below.